Hi, welcome everyone to a special edition of Story Trading. We have the CEO of Clearfield here, Cheryl Beranek. Before we get started, a quick disclaimer: Story Trading is not an investment advisor. Investing in securities involves significant risk of loss. This presentation is being recorded. It'll be provided to our VIP members first and then uploaded to YouTube next week. Here's a quick chart of Clearfield. You can see it's done very well for itself, so we're very excited to have CEO Cheryl Beranek here to give us an overview of the company. Thank you, Cheryl. You there?
I am. So thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to be with you today. Good afternoon. I'm Cheryl Beranek. I'm the president and CEO of Clearfield, and thank you to the Gateway Group for giving me the opportunity to tell you a little bit about us today. Clearfield provides a fiber protection, fiber management, and fiber delivery platform that we have introduced into the broadband space to enable rapid and cost-effective fiber deployment. We've done this for the last decade, focusing on what we call community broadband, those organizations throughout our country who are names that you may not know of unless you physically live in that part of the country. You know, names like Paul Bunyan Telephone, SureWest Communications, and Vermont Telephone, and new companies today, you know, like cable companies such as Armstrong or Cable One, as well as some of the larger providers across this market. What we try to do is really make sure that we focus on enabling the lifestyle that better broadband provides. And nothing could have been really more obvious over the course of the last year. And as we have gone through the pandemic situation, our world in which we were working from home, learning from anywhere, we needed to, have a high-speed broadband connection that made that efficient and productive. And for those of us who were lucky enough to have a fiber-fed broadband world, we really saw productivity climb probably beyond what an in-office world was all about. But for those of us who did not have a high-speed broadband fiber connection, we just learned how miserable it was not to be able to have the access to the people that we wanted to talk to and the tools that we needed to actually do our job. Our focus then has really been been able to give this information out into the market. And I'm going to tell you a little bit later about some of the things that are happening in the market that really have resulted in our explosive growth. We do things a little bit differently than the rest of the marketplace. Our solutions are a scalable and uniform, cost-effective platform of fiber protection. And the best way to think about this is that when optical fiber moves from the central office to the outside plant and then to your home or business, every point along the way, it needs to be protected because the distribution of fiber requires that the fiber is going to be moved, it's going to be circulated, and we really need to make sure that what's called the bend radius of that fiber is protected to ensure optimal performance. The cornerstone of our product line to do that is something called the Clearview cassette. And the cassette is a 12-port building block, a modular architecture that provides the mechanism to do all of that fiber protection internal to the device. In turn, we then take that cassette and we use it in a variety of architectures, the active as well as the passive architectures, in the inside as well as the outside plant. We're unique in this fashion in that our competitors, who are much larger billion-dollar companies, have different architectures for each part of their platform, and they were brought to market for the large companies like Verizon or AT&T to deploy in the standard in which it was, I would call it a build it and they will come type of approach. In contrast, our solutions are modular and scalable. They allow us to provide to the customer a means by which to scale their deployment so that they could actually align their capital equipment expenditures alongside their subscriber take rates. And that mechanism has saved that customer group a substantial amount of money and cash flow, as they've been able to deploy what we call a success-based deployment model. In addition, several years ago, we brought a fiber pathway product to market called Field Shield. And Field Shield is a solution to actually physically connect the home and to connect that home in a manner in which the total cost of ownership is a fraction of the traditional cost of ownership. Our competitors typically use what's called a flat drop cable, and the flat drop cable is used alongside a proprietary hardened connector, which is large and difficult to work with, and if cut, requires complete restoration. This is in comparison to our Field Shield product line, where it is small, easy to use, and if cut, requires only a small digging up of maybe a 6-inch pathway, and then we can use the microduct that is deployed through, as a means by which to push in a repaired product. As a result, as I said, the total cost of ownership is a fraction of the competition, and it's much more easy to use and craft friendly than the competition. As a result, this really, I think, kind of portrays what's the big deal right now, and that's the value proposition that we're looking to offer. Because in today's market, where fiber is being brought to homes and businesses, where labor is tight wherever you look, we need to find a craft friendly solution that reduces the amount of skilled labor as well as the overall labor time committed. In addition, we need to be able to have a solution that really looks at the total cost of deployment. And this is one of our competitive challenges, our competitive differentiators, because if we can reduce that amount of labor time required, we can substantially reduce the cost of bringing fiber to the home. And again, that becomes our competitive advantage. To kind of back up from there, about 80% of the cost of deployment is the labor itself. And so we knew that if we were going to compete against larger organizations, we needed to compete in a way in which, again, the total cost of ownership would be a better proposition with us. So if we can reduce that labor time, we will substantially improve the opportunity to actually get more product out there faster. Further, we found over the course of the last 10 years of working with these products that permitting and other types of turnup are an equal part of the problem of getting fiber into the ground and into the customer's home. The right away, the means by which to actually get city permit and city allowance creates a problem for broadband service providers. And by enabling a means by which to do this quicker, and by addressing those challenges, we're getting fiber out into the streets and into the homes and communities faster. Just to give you a little, to back up a little bit for the financials, to give you a perspective on what Clearfield is offering, is we were founded in 2008, and at the time we were a division of a public company that had run through all of its IPO and secondary financing. So when we started in 2008, we had a market cap of $10 million, and we had $4 million in the bank. And the board of directors said, figure out a way to be able to grow this company. So in the last 10 years, we've grown from startup to a trailing 12-month revenue of $110 million. We now have a very strong balance sheet with no debt and more than $60 million in cash, and a profitable sequential a trailing 12 years of ongoing profitability, and today a market cap of about $500 million. I'd like to look at a couple of different applications for our product, and the first one being fiber to the home. And this is one that is currently receiving a huge amount of attention due to two different government programs. One of the programs is the Rural Digital Opportunity Fund. And this fund has been approved under the Biden administration, and it provides $20 billion for the deployment of fiber to underserved and unserved markets. What's exciting about this for us in the community is the fact that the first trench of this deployment is for unserved markets. These were environments in which we're never going to get high-speed broadband because it was not it wasn't economically viable or environmentally feasible by which to get the fiber here. So this has introduced a whole new market for us. Is equally exciting because the administration, is part of the rollout of these funds, has established that fiber, which they believe is future-proofing the network, has been handicapped as the preferred platform for these deployments. So the first wave of these funding was $9 billion. It was awarded this last spring, and we'll start to see that money become available this fall and over the course of really the next 5 to 6 years. In addition, a second round of fiber to the home under the RDOF program is available to underserved communities. That will be an incremental $10 billion, and it's looking to be awarded, sometime probably in late 22 or early 23. Finally, as part of the recent Infrastructure Act that was met agreement between the Democrats and the Republicans, at the federal level, there's been an incremental $65 billion that's been allocated for public-private partnerships to get fiber out to more homes in a quicker fashion, again, over the course of the next decade. So the amount of money and the amount of support for fiber and fiber to the home is absolutely accelerating, and we couldn't be more pleased because of how it takes advantage of the product line we have to offer. In a typical fiber to the home network, you're going to start at the head end or the central office with a level of fiber. That's where some of our fiber management is going to be installed. Then you have feeder and distribution and drop fibers, which are part of the means by which to get fiber from that central office all the way to the home or business. In between each of these different types of fiber are different kinds of devices, whether it's at the substation, at the light pole or terminal, and then here at the actual house. We have a different product for each area, but all of those products are based around that Clearview cassette I mentioned earlier. So here's the Clearview cassette that goes into a frame system. This is going to be at the central office. And there's a better picture of it. And then, of course, the outside plant. Looks very similar, except for when you open up the doors. But the best way to think about that is that ugly cabinet that you probably have at the end of your cul-de-sac for telco services. It's probably copper. Hopefully someday it'll be fiber, and I'm working hard to make sure that it's mine. You'll see in here that these are cassettes inside the solution. The same cassettes that you're going to see in this very high density solution here in the central office. The difference between the two is the actual patch cords or pigtails used. These yellow pigtails are for the inside plant. In the outside plant, you're going to see black hardened pigtails because of the fact they're going to be used in more less environmentally controlled areas. But other than that, they are identical. It creates a means for us where we've been able to scale our operation, and that we build these cassettes in high volume, and then we customize the configuration to the customer order, so that when you're actually deploying to a home, you may actually see cassettes in these types of terminals or other kinds of field shield solutions, whatever the requirement might be. Sometimes you're going to see, you're seeing here the cabinet. You also might see a wall box solution inside of a home or business that's going to use cassettes as well. I don't think you need to be technical to appreciate the fact that there is a substantial amount of magic that happens between the transmission of an optical signal from that central office all the way to the home, and the importance of ensuring that that fiber is protected in order to ensure optimal performance. Here at a fiber, I wanted to be able to kind of separate for you some of the differences of the kinds of fiber that are put in place. These are all microducts. And the microduct is a unique, what's unique about this for Clearfield is that you can buy a microduct from a variety of providers. But what's different for Clearfield is this device, which is a pushable fiber. Typically, and this is actually pre-terminated and it's very small. All of the at the factory, we do the termination of the fiber, and then we can push it through the microduct, whether it's aerial lashed. You'll see here, this is a piece of aerial lashing that's going to go pole to pole, or whether this is actually a solution in which it's steel here or copper, so that it's toned so we can find it. Or you may put this buried without tone or something similar to this actually in an MDU or building. By placing the duct, you then can push this pre-terminated assembly into place. And these ducts are no more than 6 millimeters in inside diameter. So it's a very tiny space and allows us to get that kind of connectivity in rapid fashion. This is a single fiber. This solution down here is actually a 12 fiber assembly, so that we can push 12 fibers into one place in a very short and small environment. In addition to fiber to the home, we're really fiber to anywhere. And the wireless community and 5G, or what G is it, is certainly received an awful lot of visibility, an awful lot of promotion in the general marketplace. I think it's important to know that wireless is a big part of our world and our potential, but it's not going to replace fiber to the home or business. It's really an augmentation of what fiber to the home can provide. And what's critical to when we look at that is about the distance and the ability to penetrate a wall. The 5G service, a 3G or 4G service, operates at a different bandwidth or a different spectrum level than what you're going to be operating a 5G network at. By the lower of the megahertz support, the more it can actually penetrate walls, whereas the higher you go, the less it can. In addition, the higher you go, the shorter distance it can travel. So we're going to see that 5G will increase the performances of a 3G network, but it's going to require, for the level of when they talk about driverless cars and the kind of latency that will be required for autonomous vehicles, we're talking about a 5G antenna about every other light pole. So that's a huge amount of fiber, and really the investment in passing homes and businesses. And then that single fiber used for 5G can be used as the main line by which fiber to the home and businesses can be connected. Another way to look at that is really that 5G is not about the phone. You can see here in the forecast that was done earlier. This is actually an old slide, but it's still very relevant. And that's that the amount of phones that are going to be connected to 5G is actually very small, and that we're still at a very 5G level. And even as we move out into 2014, 24, and 25, wireless subscriptions are not going to enhance that quickly. What they're really about for 5G is being able to deal with the other kinds of applications. We're still very much in the infancy of that. We'll see here in 2022 the amount of 5G opportunity that's still behind us. And the more I speak with individuals in the industry and those who are involved in the deployment of the 5G small cell, the introduction of the C-band architecture, that is currently what T-Mobile is promoting and in the middle of, in which AT&T and Verizon have currently purchased spectrum, is actually creating a means by which to deploy fiber off of the towers, rather than in the small cell. So it will improve phone service, but this part of 5G is probably going to be delayed a couple of years just because of the allocation of capital. Once we do get to a point of being able to put small cells into the marketplace, it's going to require 60 times the antennas that we currently offer in a 4G network. So think of looking at the grid, right? This is a grid that is being served by the tower. off of a 4G network, because the 5G support requires more antennas because it requires less distance it can travel. We're going to need 60 times the antennas to get the coverage that you today would get on a 4G network. You're going to get a lot more speed and a lot lower latency, but from a coverage standpoint, small cell deployment will be critical. This is another example of to really illustrate that as to the difference between the microwave access and the mid-band in the macro world. Different aspects of how much coverage you can offer and what type of amplification is going to be necessary. That said, there has been a lot of hype about 5G small cells. And this is an example of Clearfield being used at a small cell site that was constructed in Miami for a previous Super Bowl. And so you can see the standpoint of our box here. This is what's called a meet me box. So it's the point in which the wireline and wireless networks hand off. You've got the antenna that's being, it's up here, and then the battery that's being supported along the way. So pretty exciting about how this actually can be put into place. But today, most of the small cells we see deployed are strategic for marketing purposes and strategic for high density, high population spaces that can take advantage of the extra bandwidth available at that point in time. The small cells, are going to be important. They're going to be important for deployment, before and after 2023. But the most important reasons for its selection of the types of equipment being used are going to be about OpEx costs and what's called plug and play deployment. And this goes to the messaging that I talked about previously, that lower total cost of ownership, as well as the ability to lower the amount of time and skill level necessary to deploy, will be the two most important factors for selection of a manufacturer. So while we think the small cell market is still in front of us a couple of years and fiber to the home will come more quickly, we believe we're well positioned for 5G opportunities when the market is ready. I wanted to take the rest of my time to give you a little bit of a financial update about our performance. We've had through March 31st of this year, our trailing 12-month revenues were $110 million. And for the period from October 1st through March 31st, which is the first 6 months of our year, our financial performance is actually up 40% over last year. Drivers associated with that are substantially in what we call our community broadband space. In that community broadband are those tier 2 and tier 3 providers that we really grew on and established Clearfield around, as well as utilities, municipalities, and other types of alternative carriers that are coming into this market space, and really are the ones who are going to benefit the most substantially from the government funding programs I introduced earlier. We also do about 11% of our business with the national carriers, early deployments in regard to the wireless market and 5G infrastructure, so that we are in the early stages of learning about what that is all about and how we can best serve those needs. We also are involved in the deepening of fiber in the cable TV space. Again, this is critical to the concept that fiber is really about fiber to anywhere. It doesn't need to be fiber to the home for Clearfield to have an opportunity. And so in the cable TV space, this is both those smaller tier 2s that are indeed delivering fiber to the home or business, as well as the larger operators who are using fiber for hub collapses and using the cassette to make that happen. We do business in North America because we have a very, what I'd like to call, high touch sales model, in that while we do not offer services, we want to work alongside our customers and be very present and available for their technical requirements. So we focused on the North American market, and of the North American market, only 4% is today outside of the US. That's a little bit smaller than it has been on a legacy basis. And it's been because over the course of really the last 16 to 18 months, the cost of the dollar due to the COVID world has been prohibitive for us to do business in Canada and Mexico. I anticipate that we'll see a resurgence of opportunity in those markets, and our revenue lines will go back up to some of their previous levels. And the legacy business is simply that the business from 10 years ago, the business that we did as a contract manufacturer for some copper and fiber companies that we've continued to maintain a loyal customer base. But that is a non-growing part of our business and why we label it legacy. Each quarter, we focus strongly on not only our sales growth, but also on our gross profit achievement and really putting ourselves in a position of improving gross profit while our financial models and financial revenue levels go up. Our operating expenses have been relatively stable in that our operating expenses, we've been incrementally adding resources as opportunities present, but we're not a top-heavy organization, but instead want to be a very performance-based program, and where you'll see increases in OpEx will be probably more driven by performance bonuses than a substantial fixed overhead. I would caution, however, that over the course of the last year, we, like every other company that's reporting, has had reduced cost structures because of the reduction in travel expenses. And so as COVID lifts and we have the opportunity to reemerge, we do see that these costs will probably go up about $500,000 per quarter when we get back to normalized travel opportunities. From a net income standpoint, you can see here the opportunity to continue to increase our bottom line. We're very proud of making money and have indicated to the marketplace that 10, 11, and 12% net incomes have been our goal. On an annualized basis, you can see that our trailing 12-month revenue has accelerated to $110 million. As I said, substantially increasing in this post-COVID world. We've had some supply chain challenges like the rest of the market, but we pride ourselves on very short-term lead times and, even more importantly, on-time revenue, on-time shipment to our promise dates. And that's allowed us today to gain share during this period of time in which rapid deployment of fiber is starting to take off. Equally important, of course, is the management of improving gross profit, which allows us then to improve that net income position that we have in what we're promoting to the marketplace. Our outlook for the year, we had taken financial guidance off of our previously during the COVID world. We had rescinded guidance because it just was too much uncertainty in the COVID marketplace. But last quarter, we did reinstate annual guidance and provided an outlook for 32% year-over-year growth for the period ending September 30th of this year, for the 12 months at that point, and are looking for $120 to $125 million revenue level and about a 12% net income position at that point. Our balance sheet remains very strong. On March 31st, no debt and $58 million in cash. I tend to take too long to talk, but I wanted to just leave you with this page, and that's what we call our Comes of Age plan. 2 years ago, we started a 3-year strategic plan that we called Coming of Age, and a year ago, or 6 months ago, I guess it is now, we, for the beginning of this fiscal year, relabeled it Comes of Age because we're so close to the calendar year 21 and becoming of age to compete in this market. We have 3 pillars by which we believe we need to do that. One is to build a better broadband for our customers. For the last decade, we have been servicing community broadband, and we are loyal to that customer group as they are loyal to us, and are attracting new entrants into community broadband, the utilities, the co-ops, and the competitive local exchange carriers as they come now and enter this market to serve underserved and unserved communities. We also know and recognize that we need to deliver ongoing innovation for what we call a true one fiber deployment. we believe that 5G will be actually introduced to the market as a one fiber installation, that 5G will be part of the make ready for fiber to the home and vice versa. And so we really want to look at our market as one network, wireline and wireless as as our market, and we're focused on removing those obstacles. And finally, the third pillar is ensuring that we can maintain a superior customer experience, but scale our operational excellence while we do that. That's not only to provide that customer experience, but to reduce our cost structure so that we can continue to be able to compete for rapidly expanding marketplace at a price point that is attractive to our customer base, but provides that return to our shareholders that each of you are looking for. With that, I think I will turn it back over to questions. And I guess we'll take it off of screen share.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Sherry. I hear an echo myself, but that was a great presentation. I especially enjoyed the significant amount of time you spent educating us on 5G versus 3 and 4G. That was really helpful. I appreciate that. Make sure to follow us on StoryTrading, YouTube, StoryTrading, Twitter. Really helps us out, increase our reach. So appreciate it if you do that. And thank you very much, everyone. We will see you next week.